Mistake number one that people are making is sprinting around the map. What are you doing? You think you're fast or something? No. You are burning stamina and you are going slower than a snail. From the start of the bridge to the middle of this circle, it's about 13 seconds. But when you repeatedly do the dash, you're going to be using less stamina and it's going to take you only 11 seconds. That way, if you're sprinting around long distances, you can go further, faster, and cover more ground long term. If you don't believe me, just look at it side by side. Maybe my line isn't perfect, maybe there's a frame or two off, but it's pretty obvious this is much faster and I've got a lot of stamina to spare. Now, I've got a question for you. Who can stun this boss faster? My max Constellation Fischl with a level 60 weapon and all the DPS in the world? Or a level 40 Barbara with a level 1 weapon? The answer is Barbara, and it's not even close. Mistake number two is not taking elements and shields seriously. There are multiple enemies in the game that have shields or immunities, and if you don't use the proper element, it's going to take you 10, 20, even 50 times the amount of damage in order to take them out. This Barbara has no damage, hitting just 6s and 7s, but there is a crazy multiplier that makes it so you can stun bosses and take out things like Abyss Mage's shields with absolute ease. The higher level you get, even things like Abyss Mages can have shields that could waste 20, 30, even 40 seconds of your time when doing something like the Spiral Abyss. Make sure you're doing your elemental reactions, make sure you're matching elements, and take them out with ease. If you want a good side-by-side comparison, take a peek at my maxed out Fischl, right? Taking forever, hardly even chunking it, and look at just a few auto attacks from Barbara. It's insanity. Match those elements and crush these enemies. Most food items are great. They can give you a bunch of different damage, but the Lotus Seed and Bird Egg Soup, as well as the Barbados Ratatouille, are incredible for exploration. Head over to Stormbearer Point, and there's going to be a nun walking around. Exhaust your dialogue options, and you're going to get this recipe, and it's going to change your life. 15 minutes! That's right, 15 minutes of reduced stamina costs. You're going to be exploring all over this damn map, so you might as well have reduced stamina costs. While we're at it, make sure you process any ingredients you need, and when you are actually cooking, use people with bonuses. There are some that will give you double the product, or you can get special dishes, which increases the potency or increases the duration. In some cases, the dish might have double the duration, which is absolutely amazing. Mistake number 4 is not marking your map properly. This is one of the best farming locations, but it's on a random little island you're probably going to forget about if you don't mark it down. There are so many locations in the game with resources you're going to need, especially things like ascension materials that might be abundant in a particular location. Stop sleeping on it, or else I'm going to have to punch you in the ear. Some items like these crystal rocks take 72 hours or maybe even a little bit more to respawn. So you're not going to remember, you're not going to walk past them all the time, you might completely forget, so mark them down so you can farm this when they're up. Adding to this, make sure you're using the Genshin Impact Interactive Map. Just Google Genshin Impact Interactive Map and you'll be able to find it. It allows you to see all the locations of special Ascension materials that might only literally exist in one spot. Now, in most games, quests give you the most experience, and in Genshin Impact, it's no different. But one thing I want to recommend is if you see a chest, if you see a spirit to guide, if you see a Geoculus or any other item, grab it now. You're not going to remember where it is, you're not going to be throwing those chests on a cooldown because, guess what? Chests are one of the only ways to get experience long term. Once you get close to AR 30, everything slows down. And one of the only ways to get experience is these chests. You're always going to have a marker on the map for your quests, but if you forget about a chest location or you run past it, you're not going to be going back there and you're not going to get it. Now, the other thing too is if you're not opening these chests, you're not putting them on a cooldown to return. I don't know if every chest in the game returns, but there are a ton of them that do. It might take a day, some of them might take 2, but if you don't open them now, they're not coming back, so you need to get on this as soon as you can. Don't be afraid to use blue weapons and make sure that you refine them. When you have copies of them, you can make them much stronger, going from 60% attack to 120% bonus attack here. Don't be afraid to use blue weapons, especially when you're kind of in the mid game. In some cases, some of these blue weapons can be incredible, like the white tassel spear. This is probably better than most purple weapons in the game that I have right now, so I'm going to be leveling this thing up and most likely getting a huge boost to my DPS. The same thing goes with artifacts. Obviously you want purples, obviously you want gold ones, but if the stats on them are terrible, that can be a mistake as well. You need to look at all the stats, because even this same mask could have HP on it instead of crit rate, or it could have defense instead of crit damage. You need to make sure that you're picking good stats for your character, the higher the better obviously, and the more good ones the better. Something like this, I had crit rate, crit damage, and attack, and it smashed. Are you short on Mora? Are you looking for some crispy little Ascension materials, or maybe even crafting a bow? Well, then you need to start spending your sigils and stop being cheap. Once you max out all of the items in the souvenir shop, you can then just buy Mora straight up, and this is one of the best ways to get it. This is literally one of the fastest ways to get money in the game, and you're going to need a lot of it. Some chests in the game respawn, and you will get sigils from that, so spend all the money, buy everything out so that you can actually purchase the Mora from the store. There's some available for cheap, but that runs out. Then you have to do the 2 sigil one later on, but still, this is great if you're looking for currency. Now, this is the biggest mistake I'm seeing Genshin Impact players make, and that is not focusing on 1 or 2 characters. If you try to upgrade every character's weapon, every ascension possible, if you're always trying to give them skills and upgrades, you're going to have a terrible team. Now, that obviously sounds weird. How would you have a terrible team if you're upgrading everyone? Because you're literally going to run out of materials. It will literally be impossible to keep up with the amount of materials and, most importantly, the resin. Many of the Ascension and upgrade materials require resin just to farm them. It's literally impossible to get them any other way other than spending this resin. But resin is on a timer and a cooldown essentially, so you can't just farm these things 24/7. If you're trying to get these for multiple characters, instead of being able to max out weapons and max out Ascension levels, you're going to constantly be waiting on this timer in order to do it. Some of these materials start getting expensive and you're going to need a lot of them, and you literally won't have enough time in the day to get it. So you can either spend money or you can spend primo gems, but that might not even save you. So resin is going to replenish over time, but it takes a long time. So if you're trying to farm a boss multiple times that takes 40, it's literally going to take multiple days to get enough resin to farm it enough for some of the later ascensions. You literally will take days just to farm it. But that's okay, because then that character is going to be cracked. Now, you can use things like the primo gems to refresh. The first time you do it each day is 50 gems, then the next 2 times it's 100, and it goes up from there. Now, I am grinding my adventure rank. I'm trying to get really high level so I can make content, but most people want to be using this for their characters because primo gems aren't easy to come by. So if you're grinding adventure rank and you really care about this stuff, you could go for it, and you could use things like the fragile resin, but that's kind of a mistake as well. Until you're much higher level, using fragile resin is kind of a mistake because the rewards you get from bosses improves as they go up in level, and that only happens when you go up in adventure rank, 25, 30, 35, 40. Unless you're hitting these big thresholds, using fragile resin is really a waste because every boss that you fight at a higher level could drop the equivalent of essentially 3 of these, or 5 of these, or 6 of these. So you need to make sure that you're only using fragile resin when you're fighting the big bosses. The other thing too is if you want to upgrade things like artifacts, you're literally going to start running out of artifacts to infuse into it. And you're going to have to start using some of your better ones or ones that might have a good roll. That's fine, you do get a lot of blues. You can see I've got a ton of blues that I can use, but if you're trying to do this for every single character, you literally won't have enough artifacts. And you won't have enough Mora. You will run out of Mora. And that's gonna be brutal, obviously, because then you're not gonna be able to do anything. You can't upgrade nothing. And it's really just this like snowballing effect. If you try to spend money on everyone, you're just gonna have no one that's powerful. Thank you very much for watching. I'm mtashed, and I'm a full-time content creator. I'm trying to do 2 videos a day on Genshin Impact, and I also live stream on twitch.tv/mtashed. So if you want to watch me live while I grind out bosses and do other things, I'd love to see you there. Make sure to subscribe for more, make sure to like the video, and share this with your friends. Appreciate it. I've been having a blast with this game. I know you guys are loving it too, and that's it for me. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.